I would say first and foremost is that the health and care of the animals always takes precedent, no matter what the cost is.
Hmm.
But on the other side, you still want to hit your revenue targets, right? You need to manage labor, you need to manage your guest appeal or maintain your guest appeal, and I think that's probably the biggest thing, right? So far with Jungle Island, if we make an investment, we need to make sure that it's got a quicker return on investment.
Tired of outdated systems holding your attraction back?
Gatemaster believes technology is part of the experience, transforming every touchpoint into an opportunity.
Imagine seamless online booking, effortless mobile ordering, and data-driven insights at your fingertips.
Ready to revolutionize your guest journey and maximize revenue?
Power your attraction with Gatemaster.
Discover the future at gatemaster.com.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastically.
All right.
Yeah. So I got a question for you.
Okay.
You consider yourself knowledgeable about
Yes. Oh, sorry.
that was the perfect answer. Um, I was going to say about amusement parks and to some extent their history and how the theme park industry has evolved. Would you say you're pretty knowledgeable about that?
Definitely since we interviewed Jim Futrell. Yes.
Yes, good. So, to your knowledge, how many parks have actually moved? Like they were in one spot and then they moved the whole operation to another spot.
Well, there's Illich Gardens.
Hmm.
I know there's probably got to be a good chunk more than that. Which ones can come to mind for you?
Elitch Gardens.
Which? Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't Google this before I asked the question, because that's the only one I could think of. But also, the park that we're talking about today, Jungle Island, moved.
Yes. Yes, it did. So today's guest is Jeremy Hauwelaert. He is the president and CEO of Jungle Island. And before we jump into this, I'll just tell, just from a personal note, Jungle Island has a special place for me in my heart, actually. So I was born in Miami, but I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. But growing up in Detroit, I would always come down to Miami at least 2 or 3 times a year, and my mom would come or would bring me down, and my grandma was down there, and I had a lot of family down there, and I got to live Miami kind of like it was a local essentially, and like I knew like the neighborhood barbecue place and all this, but my mom made a focus to make sure that we would get out to a lot of attractions as well. And one of my core childhood memories from 3 years old until probably in high school was going to the Parrot Jungle in Pinecrest. And I remember when it moved to Watson Island, there was an article in Amusement Today that compared the old park to being a roadside attraction getting upgraded to a tourist destination. So if we go with that roadside attraction, feel I think I could walk into the park and I could tell you where everything was, and there were vending machines where I could get a wax flamingo outfit, and the amount of pictures that I have as a child and probably and just growing with parrots on my shoulder and things like that. And then I remember when it moved in 2003, and we went there, and it was called Parrot Jungle Island when it moved to Watson Island in right there in Biscayne Bay. And being really impressed with the new facility, but still having all of those old memories. And then later on, when I joined the industry, and then eventually, when I started my first business, Jungle Island was actually one of my first clients. So I so even some of the things that Jeremy talks about that the park did with their master planning. I remember being in the boardroom and seeing all those master plans laid out and all of that. So this interview was particularly special for me just because of my personal connection that I have to the park.
Absolutely. It'd be like me talking to somebody from Geauga Lake, which is a
Ooh.
park I went to when I was growing up. But Jeremy really talked about some really interesting things. He's got a very interesting background about how he got into the attractions industry. We do take a good amount of time to talk about the Jungle Island experience, and like you mentioned, the history of it and how it moved from one location to the next. What I think is really interesting is, like many of our guests, he did use the word immersive, and that's a word that you and I have talked about quite a bit. And I loved his distinction about how the immersive experience at Jungle Island really has nothing to do with technology. It's about the landscaping, it's about the animals, but you can still have an immersive experience even without plugging in a device.
Absolutely. So hearing about the Jungle Island experience was fascinating. Jeremy's background is in marketing. Before he became the president and CEO, he oversaw marketing at Jungle Island, and prior to that, theater of the sea in Isla Morada, which is such a cool, sounds like I haven't been there, but such a cool, fascinating place. So we get to hear his perspective on marketing. One of the things that he mentioned is that everything is marketing. So hearing uh, through his lens how he really unpacks that is really fascinating, and talks about the way that they were able to reopen from COVID and really engage the community, and a lot of things just from that marketing standpoint were really fascinating to hear.
And of course, what fascinated me is as he was talking about the employees and how they are kind of brought on board in order to create the great guest experience, and how they like to take chances on their team members. And what he means by that is really focusing on what they can bring to the table, giving them opportunities to learn and grow. He's really passionate about that. And I think what that does is it helps not only deliver the great experience, but also it shows how dedicated people are to the property and to the guests that are coming to visit them.
Absolutely. So should we get to the jungle or get to the island and kick off this interview with Jeremy Hauwelaert?
Let's do it. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So excited for this conversation. Can we start kind of with your background and history to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. My background, I would say, is probably pretty atypical for the attraction industry, right? I mean, I grew up in Belgium. I met the love of my life here in the Florida Keys. And at some point, I decided to leave my life in Belgium behind and start again here in Isla Morada. Back in Belgium, I did business development for Sara Lee. So I got addicted to coffee. And basically, I worked for the coffee branch of Sara Lee. So loved what I did. And that's why I needed to quickly get one before we got started today as well. And then once I moved here in the Keys, I was so surprised that I had come from the heart of Europe to, well, to the outpost of Florida, I would say. And I felt very much left behind. I felt like, whoa, I mean, Miami is far, everything else is far from here. So I really had to reorientate myself. And so I found my first job contracting for a receptive tour operator in Miami and contracting attractions for a receptive tour operator. And that was basically like the first time I really got involved in the attraction industry, or at least I started to be more familiar with attractions. So after a while, I decided that commuting on a daily basis between Isla Morada and Miami was not my ideal situation, and it wasn't what I signed up for when I decided to move down here. So I was fortunate enough to be hired by Theater of the Sea. It's one of the oldest marine mammal facilities in the world, actually. And they hired me as sales and marketing for them and partially business development in regards to introducing them to receptive tour operators and introducing them to OTAs and all those things. And I was fortunate enough that Theater of the Sea had been around for a long time, and it was really a diamond in the rough. And that's always a good thing in the sense that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. So what I mean by that is that although the product was very, very solid, the marketing had fallen back. So the marketing was ran by the owner, Kenny McKenney, and was still done like the way he was taught by his father back in the 60s and the 70s. A lot of print advertising, few billboards here and there. And don't get me wrong, billboards are super effective, but that was about it. So just by coming in, making sure I could really think more about the digital strategy for them and really put them back on the map, it was really my really introduction to, well, to the attractions right here in Florida. And for the next 3.5 years, we had double-digit growth in both revenue and in attendance, and that was a really fun thing to do. But again, the product was super solid, and it was about time for me to move on. And Hurricane Irma happened, and Theater of the Sea got completely destroyed, and it got completely flooded. Lots of things, and I mean, and never let a good crisis go to waste in the sense that we were able to rethink the operation. We were able to rethink the guest flow, the check-in, upgrade a few things. And that was the first time that I was able to really start thinking about operation and operational management and management, right? And that was something that I really, really enjoyed. And I've been able to do that ever since going into Jungle Island. I've assisted the Dubai Safari Park with a turnaround as well. So it's been interesting. It's been fun.
And so now you're at Jungle Island on Watson Island, right between the city of Miami and the island of Miami Beach. And for those who are unfamiliar, can you tell us about the island? Tell us about the park.
So Jungle Island is an 18-acre eco-adventure park, just like you're saying. It's in the heart of Miami, located between downtown and South Beach. It's a blend of a zoological park with immersive experiences. It's almost like a botanical garden as well. And it's a place where you can go from meeting slots to some of our to the Lantern Festival that we do. And since 2020, we even operate a beach club on the island as well. So basically, it's a very diverse product.
So, Jeremy, we hear the word immersive a lot, and a lot of times we talk about that in terms of technology, but I would imagine that the immersive experience on Jungle Island has less to do with technology and more to do with the eco-friendly nature of the experiences.
That's exactly it, right? I mean, the true value of Jungle Island is in the landscaping. It's in the very lush jungle feel. So Jungle Island really feels like an emerald heart in a concrete jungle in Miami, right? It's very lush, it's very green. It attracts its natural wildlife as well because as much as it's home to a bunch of animals, we also receive a lot of wild animals that call Jungle Island home, such as some geese who come there over the winter. Anyway, we've got a bunch of animals that really find a home there.
Now, Watson Island is not the original location for Jungle Island. Can we maybe kind of rewind a little bit? Can you share just a little bit of the history? Because I feel like the history of Jungle Island is very significant, I would say, to Miami's tourism scene. And just wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about the background of the park.
So, Jungle Island was founded in 1935 by the Share family in Pinecrest Gardens, and it really became a landmark for Miami. It was known as Parrot Jungle, and I think even up to this day, the majority of people, our local Miami people, even call it Parrot Jungle. Even although it moved from there in 2003 to the current location, and from there the name changed from Parrot Jungle to Parrot Jungle Island, and then they dropped the parrot part, and now it's just Jungle Island. If you go back to Pinecrest Gardens, it's a public park now. It is very similar in layout and in style, and the similarities between what the old Parrot Jungle used to be and the current Jungle Island to the pathways and everything is it's almost identical. It's really interesting. So they really tried recreating that old Pinecrest feeling in a new location.
And how would you say that translated, especially for people who are um, maybe used to going to that older location or the previous location and now going to the new location and seeing that it's similar, I would think there's some people that would say, hey, this feels familiar, this feels good. But then others might say, well, why didn't they change it when they moved it?
So it's actually it was a very interesting decision to move the entire operation as it existed from Pinecrest to the new location. They really wanted to focus on more on the animal experiences, right? When they moved it, they really wanted to introduce new shows, new concepts, new encounters. The thing is that moving it from Pinecrest to the current location has been a blessing and a curse. When they moved it to Watson Island, the intent was actually to triple the attendance by capturing a lot of the attendance from the beach itself, a lot of travelers, a lot of tourists. Now, if you only focus on the zoo component of Jungle Island, then a zoo is not something that a lot of travelers go to a zoo. And there's only a few zoos in the world that are able to really capture tourists, right? You've got the San Diego Zoo, you've got the Singapore Zoo, the London Zoo, and those are about it. Everyone else goes to the zoo in their backyard. So by moving it away from the core of where you were able to settle in Pinecrest and moving it to Watson Island also means that you're forcing all your familiar guests to really go around in Miami traffic, and we all know that's not a pleasant thing to do, right? I mean, unfortunately, it limits the operating hours for our locals on a weekday because traffic is really horrible in Miami until 11 o'clock in the morning. And unless you get out of Watson Island at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're stuck in traffic as well. And I know I'm not selling the product here by saying this, but it makes your operating window during the week very limited. So you've got 3 hours to provide a great product. Otherwise, people will be sitting in their car for over an hour and a half getting there and getting home. And that makes it very, very difficult. So that's what I said. The location, the current location is a blessing and a curse. When it
Mm.
comes to, for instance, other elements of the business, the location is much more of an advantage. So when it comes, for instance, we do over 450 events annually in our ballroom. It's called Bloom. For them, the fact that we are conveniently located between downtown Miami and South Beach makes it super convenient. So even for luncheons, people can easily get out of work. They can come there, do their lunch. Parking is there. Everything is quickly in and out. When it comes to the beach club, it's another experience. It really, I mean, people come, they sit on the beach, they stay longer, so they are able to avoid the traffic, like the rush hour traffic, and it really helps for those things. But for the park itself, because we're family oriented, we're really focusing on families, you really are looking into those peak rush hours.
That's a good point of kind of the well, it's the switch from being very much very inland. Pinecrest Gardens is not that close
Mhm.
to, it really serves the local market to really becoming a tourist destination. And I know you're right by the cruise port, so you do a lot of cruise business as well. Can you share a little bit kind of the overall demographic that comes to Jungle Island and maybe kind of expanding on a little bit of kind of what you said of the locals, they have to sit in traffic or come between 11 and 2, but then really making sure that Island is very much a tourism based destination as well.
So the interesting point, and let me correct you right there, Josh, is that it's not because the cruise ships are visible from us that it's actually a market for Miami. What I mean by that is that Miami is not a transient port. Miami is an arrival and a departure port, which means that
Mm.
on the departure date, they want to get people on the ship as soon as possible, and on the arrival day, they want to get them out as soon as possible. Which means that on the arrival day, guests are waiting for their Ubers for their pickup at 6, 7, 8 in the morning, even long before the park opens up. And then and then if you just want to go on a cruise, then they want to get you there at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock to go and be gone. I mean, be gone on the ship, obviously, right? So there's only, I think, probably around 30 ships a year that actually call Miami, well, that's make a stop in Miami for a transient stop, right? Where they would
Mhm.
actually do a big bus tour. They want to go to the Everglades, but not necessarily come to Jungle Island. So I just wanted to, it's as much as
Thank you
we
for
always
correcting me on that, Nick. Yeah.
much as we see the big ones like the Oasis of the Sea, Icon of the Seas, and thousands of people, it's like, all right, where are you guys?
Well, so and sort of tied to that, I want to kind of tap into your marketing background, thinking about the limited hours that Jungle Island has for the families and things like that, does that pose a kind of marketing challenge in order to kind of message the fact that there's this short window that you're open where a lot of other attractions try to maximize the number of hours that they're open?
It's an interesting question, right? So obviously, understanding the Miami market is super important for any attraction, right? So the first thing I had to learn in Miami is that people do not plan. They do not want to plan in advance, like whether it's going to a basketball game or whether it's going to a park, they'll decide a day off. So from a marketing standpoint, it is very nerve-wracking because if you want to do something new, you'll never know if you're actually going to have people that want to show up or not. The other thing is that because Miami is very warm-blooded, what I mean by that is that people want to do things late at night, is that optimizing the park times by having additional activations in the park, such as Halloween, for instance, such as our Lantern Festival, really opens up an additional time slot that wasn't available before. And basically, almost 6 months out of the year, we're a park that runs from 9:30 in the morning now until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. The same with our beach club, runs 6 days a week until 11 o'clock at night. And then the same with all the events, right, that we do on the pool. Now, going back to the other thing, like from a marketing angle and from a park perspective, Miami, again, right, understanding the market in Miami is absolutely critical. And as much as a lot of understanding who comes to Jungle Island, and for us, 70% of our visitors are local. So we need to really cater to that local family, and we also need to understand what the average household income is when you come to Miami, because it's very different. I mean, Miami locals don't necessarily spend their money and their time in the design district, or they don't spend their money at the Fana or the W. They're very conscious on how they spend their dollars and what they do. So for us, trying to get to locals to come back to Jungle Island, that was really the first thing that we had to figure out after COVID, right? And we decided to give it away for free. So we came up with a free garden admission, and we decided to just show what the park was all about, that we really were targeting like families with children. We were really focusing on the things that we had to offer in the park. And we decided to make our money on food and beverage and on parking and on all the other ancillary products. And that free garden admission did more for us than $1 million ad buy budget could do on an annual basis. So that's been something that we've been really maximizing, right? So the product for Jungle Island itself had felt a little bit dated until a few years ago. What I mean by that is that the product of really focusing on animal shows and on the way the park was created and opened in 2003, it was designed for a concept that was highly popular in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. But now, 20 years down the line, it's no longer something that really draws the same crowds because people are expecting something completely different from a zoo, right? They're looking for much larger enclosures. They're looking for multi-species enclosures. They're looking for a much more educational component of what they're doing. And for us, we really had to go and think hard about what that new experience for Jungle Island had to be or what it could be, right?
So where did those conversations lead to in kind of planning that new enhanced modern day experience?
So I think a while ago you had John Dunlap on your podcast as well. John is the CEO of Iconic Management, and he was actually the first one to really think about a new master plan for Jungle Island. And his idea or his vision was to look close around us and to really get some inspiration from Xcaret and Explore in Playa del Carmen, which is one of the most world-renowned eco-adventure parks. And that was to bring a water component, to bring an adventure component, plus really focusing on education, adding a hotel and a beach club to the entire operation. And that's really where that vision was then marketed. And that vision was picked up by ESJ Capital Partners in 2017 with the intent to do a full redevelopment of the island.
So speaking of the kind of the marketing again, the background, and you mentioned billboards and things like that. So obviously you know the kind of the market of marketing. How has that helped you as you have moved into the president and CEO role?
I take a very broad approach to marketing in the sense that it's not only about promotion, about ad buys. It's more about perspective, right? It's about understanding who our guests are. It's trying to understand what drives their behavior, making sure our product aligns with their expectations, and whether that's a pricing strategy like our free garden admission or an event programming like our Luminosa Lantern Festival. It's really where we base the capital investment decisions on. So whatever we do, my marketing angle has, or my marketing philosophy has always been that I think marketing is responsible from the first contact you have with your guest, and could be through an ad, could be through a billboard, until they've actually left the building and they filled out a survey, how the experience was. So everything from that first touch point until the end, I've always believed that it's part of the marketing, it's part of the marketing scope.
So, Jeremy, this might be switching gears just a little bit, but one of the things that that you were sharing with us before we started recording was the employee experience and the, I would say, the dedication to employees. Can you talk a little bit about the culture at Jungle Island and the way that you are really focusing on amplifying the team member experience of those who are working at the park?
So so Josh, it's really, I mean, I've learned really quickly that it's basically it's the people that work with us that define the user experience, right? I mean, meeting a lemur is great, but having somebody at the end of the day, it's the animal care person who takes the guests and who talks about the lemurs and who's excited about it, and really takes them on that journey of discovery that really is as important as the actual product and the experience itself. So that is something that we've embraced as a company, right? I mean, for instance, some of the things that we decided to do early on was, for instance, provide meal plans to all the employees, making sure I mean, full bellies are always important in whatever capacity it is, right? I mean, so it's something that we've learned from our operating a beach club where a family meal is the most normal thing in the world, that we then just expanded on, and we just decided to do that for all the employees. So they can go to our concessions, they have a concessions card, and they get a free lunch. We do other things as well. We do provide free snacks. I think one of the cooler things that we do, and I do have to give credit where credit is due, it's an idea that I got from Matthew Tibbus from the Alligator Farm, is for our frontline staff to optimize the Florida Attraction Share letters. It's one of the biggest advantages of being part of the FAA is to allow your employees to visit other attractions in Florida. Now, the thing was that we do give them an additional vacation day if they go to another attraction, if they use a white letter. So basically, what they have to do, they have to fill out a really quick questionnaire on the three things that they've observed that another attraction does better than we do, and they have to say three things that we do better. Now, going back to perspective, it means that one, you're giving an extra vacation day to somebody that really, I mean, everybody can always use vacation time. Let's be honest here, mental health is super important. But they go to an attraction, somebody who does, for instance, guest relations or animal care, they go to an attraction and they actually go there with with their eyes wide open. They're not just there to just enjoy themselves, but they're also there and learning and seeing things in a new perspective. And we'll hope that when they come back, that 1 in 10 visits returns something for us that we can implement and that really resonates for all team members.
And with those items that you're asking them to gather, are you following up, or somebody in their department following up just to kind of hear what they're observing?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, they do have to fill out a real document that is actually shared with our HR department as
Okay.
well. But then during the weekly operational meeting, we will discuss some of the learning points of those people. So when I talk to the curator, when I talk to the GM, for instance, we do go over if somebody has used it and what were some of the points that they brought back. And then if it makes sense and it's something we can implement easily, we would do that very quickly.
We talk about other attractions, and one of the things that's interesting about Watson Island is there's Jungle Island, but you're not the only operator on the island. There's I know there's the yacht club, there's the Miami Children's Museum. I'm curious as far as kind of how you're able to really interact with the other businesses that are your neighbors right there on the island.
And unfortunately, it is limited. So yes, we do have, I mean, on our side of the island, we have the yacht club, like you mentioned. We have the harbor club as well. And then on the other side of the island, we do have the children's museum. We have a paddle field, and then we have another restaurant called the Deck as well. But interaction is rather limited. We have tried a few times to really work with the Children's Museum. Right now, I know my marketing team is working on something where we have a combo ticket. The concept would be something in the line of like when it rains, you go to the Children's Museum. When the sun's out, you come to Jungle Island. So it's basically two parks, one ticket kind of strategy thing. Um, but there are some challenges to collaborate.
So, Jeremy, I wanted to actually go back to that concept of asking your team members for suggestions from other facilities or actually their observations. I'm curious if you've seen like a change in the team member behavior or the team member engagement because of that. Because I could see, oh, you're asking my opinion, and then you implemented something that I suggested. Now I'm actually more engaged as a team member.
I wish I could give you an honest answer on this. Um, Unfortunately, in my current role, I am no longer directly involved necessarily with every team member frontline. Now, we just did a new survey. We just launched a happiness survey. So we decided to take a play to take a play from Bhutan where they actually measure the gross national happiness is to figure out like, okay, we've got a questionnaire with 35 questions, like what do people feel about how do people feel about working at Jungle Island? So that is currently ongoing. We had like 20 participants earlier this morning. So far, it's only been like a few days, over 188. That's not very successful just yet. So we're hoping to actually get to 50 or 60 to really give us a much better understanding of on how people feel and where we need to make improvements.
How does this happiness survey compare to or differ from? Because it sounds like you're looking at it from a different lens than simply an employee satisfaction survey. It sounds like it goes deeper, especially if it's 35 questions. I'm curious if you're able to give us a glimpse into it.
We ask questions about stress, right? So we basically our guests, I mean, it's just one of the examples here, right? So we basically ask people to score with stars between strongly agree and strongly disagree. So one of the questions, for instance, is I'm able to manage stress effectively in my role. I feel a strong sense of purpose in the work that I do. I feel physically well and healthy enough to perform my job effectively. I have the mental health support that I need when I need it. So those are the type of questions that we're really going for.
And it's interesting, thinking back to my time doing those kind of surveys at organizations, a lot of those are very similar, but you didn't have one that specifically called out mental health. And I'm curious if that's something that you're seeing kind of on the rise in terms of things that you and your team really need to be focused on for your greater team in terms of their mental health.
Well, I think it's something where we learn as we go, right? I mean, we clearly have to acknowledge that there's a difference between working with a younger generation. I'm not saying it's better or worse, that's a very different thing, but it's just different. And we need to adapt and we need to make sure we focus our we ask the questions that matter to everyone in our team. And that is something that we just had to adapt to. So, for instance, right, I mean, we've definitely going to mental health, we've definitely noticed that there is a much more defined line between work and leisure in the sense that they're willing to show up for 40 hours a week, but that's about it. Like, don't ask them to work any more than 40 hours, and this is scheduled and this is it. Managers, our hourly employees, it really doesn't make much difference anymore in regards to that same philosophy, and it's something we have to get used to. And we've been asking ourselves as a team, like how it's going to impact the entire workflow in the next couple of years. And I'm not saying that we're expecting people to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? That's really not what I'm trying to get at here. But it's a very different approach. It feels to me that a lot of the younger generation comes to work while they try and figure out how to be an entrepreneur or how to figure out how to do what they really wanted to do. And the limitations there is that instead of understanding that everything they do today in whatever capacity, whatever job it is, it all builds to their experience and to their future careers. You cannot skip steps, right? I mean, it's the same within, I mean, it's almost the same as like introducing AI to your business in the sense that like there's a lot of AI that is by far smarter than a lot of young people, coordinators that come into your business. But if you don't have a coordinator, in a few years, they won't have the experience to be a manager or a director either. And that's where you still need those people. You need people to make mistakes. You need people to learn. And that is something that we're seeing that is changing very rapidly.
I'm curious, kind of still on the topic of mental health here, is what are the resources that whether it's that Jungle Island provides or that you see that employers should be providing to their employees to be able to at least say, we're thinking about you and we're focused on the positivity of your mental health, and here are the resources available, XYZ.
I know for a fact when we had to renew our insurance this year, there was something extra in regards to mental health for our employees that they could actually get support. And that is something that we did agree to. So it really is something that we value. It's hard to really pinpoint right now and what all those points are. But it is something that we continuously try to improve at least. When it comes to teamwork, I'm very happy to say that everybody else in my team is much, much better at their job than I could ever be. So I think that's awesome news.
Well, and that's kind of where my mind went as you talked about people who are, on the job, but also looking for that entrepreneurial opportunity. And so many people talking about the gig economy, where, you've got one gig here and one gig there, and it doesn't necessarily, that mindset doesn't necessarily lend itself to being a productive employee for a specific employer. And I think where my mind goes with that is thinking about finding the right fit for that particular person, no matter where they are in the level of the organization. So I'm sure that you've got people that you're working with that maybe they're thinking they want to go one way, but you're seeing, hey, I can see something that a third party might see that you might not see in yourself, and that's part of team building. So I'm curious, excuse me, how you approach that with your team.
It's something that I've always felt very strong on giving chances and opportunities to young people. And unfortunately, I've had to learn a few times that not every chance given is a chance taken as well. And it's something where I've really seen potential with some of our younger team members where you feel like, hey, they could become a great operator in the next couple of years, but they need to do their time. They need to learn, they need to grow. And something that I've observed many times is that when things become difficult, they rather run than face the music, right? Instead of making changes to overcome the adversity, it's something that, oh, no, 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 I'll just do something else now. This is too difficult. This is too demanding. And it's a very fine line. It's a very, very fine line.
The efforts that you've taken towards you mentioned all the perks that your employees have. You mentioned those earlier, as far as the free meals, the snacks, the extra vacation day to visit another attraction. Have you seen positive impacts to retention and employee engagement and overall satisfaction?
Our turnover is extremely low right now, on both the restaurant side, which is rare, and on the Jungle Island side. Now, obviously, we also need to take into consideration that we're a for-profit operation, right? So the bottom line is always important, which means that when we hire team members, we're not always able to compete, for instance, with other institutions like Zoo Miami, just to name one of them, right? Now, what that means is that when we find really great, talented people, very often we spend a lot of time and effort and energy coaching them, training them, teaching them, and then we lose them because they have other career opportunities where we just can't match it, right? It's something that is, again, it's the nature of the beast. I would say that it's almost flattering if they do, and at some point, giving young people chances and letting them fly and letting them figure out where life takes them is important. On the other side, it sometimes hurts because you really are taking a chance with someone and really hope that they would stick around for a while. And then the San Antonio Zoo knocks or some other zoo knocks, and they're just like, yep, see ya.
So, Jeremy, it's interesting you mentioned being for profit because a lot of institutions like yours are not for profit. And so I'm curious how that changes the outlook or the operation, if at all, with the way that you are running the business.
To say one thing, you're balancing your mission with your margins, right? I would say it first and foremost is that the health and care of the animals always takes precedent, no matter what the cost is.
Hmm.
But on the other side, you still want to hit your revenue targets, right? You need to manage labor, you need to manage your guest appeal or maintain your guest appeal, and I think that's probably the biggest thing, right? So far with Jungle Island, if we make an investment, we need to make sure that it's got a quicker return on investment. So that is something that for us is like for us, it's rare in the current situation of Jungle Island to make an investment that will only pay off in 5 years. If we make an investment today, then we're expecting it to pay off pretty much in the next 6 months to really start driving attendance or to really have an impact on the bottom line.
Jeremy, we are getting close to the end here of this interview. I just want to let you know just how fascinating this is. But as we start to wind this down here, if people want to learn more about Jungle Island or if they want to get a hold of you directly, where would you send them?
I think visiting jungleisland.com or the website jungle island or yeah, the website jungleisland.com definitely. Otherwise, just on LinkedIn on Jungle Island Resort. If they want to come to the beach club, they can visit Joya Beach.
Excellent. We will make sure all of that is clickable in the show notes. And like Josh said, this has been a great conversation. So, Jeremy, we really thank you for your time. And for everybody who is out there watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.